Hi y'all, Phil here with High Tech Legion. We're taking another look at Cooler Master's 693 mid-tower case. But this time, it's got a trick up its sleeve. It's coming packaged with an all-in-one water cooler, the Seidon 120. Let's take a look. Here we have a nice, clean-looking front finish to the case. In order to take this off, in order to access fans and to deal with the optical drives, there are 3 tabs on each side that need to be released. There we go. Underneath, you see we have a 200mm fan. Behind this, there is support for up to a 240mm radiator, or 2 fans up to 140mm each. Inside of here, we have our cover plates for the optical drive bays. These can be removed just by pinching these tabs. And this mesh down here can be taken out by just moving these 2 tabs, or these 2 tabs, out of the way. There's also support on the front here for another solid state disc, which secures in place with the 2 grommet points here and here. Moving up to the top of the 693, you don't really see much until you move this panel here, where you have a nice little storage cubby hole for flash drives or whatever. You have 2 USB 3.0 ports, your microphone, headphones, dual USB 2.0 ports, power switch, reset switch, and hard drive activity light. This guy is semi-transparent so that you can still see activity and the power light when it's completely shut. Towards the back here, this will come off with just removing a little thumb screw in the back. And underneath, you can see spot to either put your 2 fans, 120 or 140, or you can also put a radiator mounted here from underneath. Back side of the case, you can see here we have our thumb screw for removing the top cover for the fans. We have our 120mm case fan here, thumb screws for the side panels, 7 expansion slots, I/O shield area, grommeted holes for water cooling hosing, and 1 extra expansion slot here. We also have this, probably put in here something like a fan speed controller over here. We also have our power supply spot with holes so that you can align it either way. And on the bottom, this little tab allows us to remove the air dust filter for the bottom of the case. Looking at the bottom of the 690, you can see we have our dust filter for the power supply and the bottom fan position. We slid off just by lifting this 1 tab. Here you can see 4 screws. These are for the bottom hard drive cage. You notice 2 more holes here and 2 more holes here, so you can slide the bottom hard drive cage back to make room for a front radiator. You also have space for another 120 to mount there, and these 4 are for the grommet mount points for another solid state drive. Looking at the front side panel of our case, you can see we have a nice large window. To open it, just remove the 2 thumb screws on the back and slide. Inside here you can see we have our hard drive bays. These can be taken out and moved around. Notice how these are wide right now. This bracket here, if you take the screws out, you can move it over to support 3.5-inch drives, just like the bottom down here. This is a solid cage that is locked into size for 3.5-inch drives. Inside, we can see we have here, this is our box of little goodies for such as fasteners for the motherboard and such. And if you look at your hard drive trays, you can see they are toolless, and they're designed to be collapsible so that the same trays can be used for both solid-state drives and for full-size hard drives. On the back here, we can see the cutout for the CPU cooler. One motherboard offset is installed. We have the mounting point for another solid-state drive. And we have lots of tie points for your cable management and the pass-through cutouts for cable routing. We have a little bracket here to help hold the power supply in place. We have little rubber on the bottom. We have little rubber thingies for the power supply. Another mounting point for a 120 or a 140 millimeter fan. And also can be done, there is another slot here for mounting a solid-state drive. And here we have our CD, our optical drive bay, with its toolless securing method. Looking at the back side of the case, you can see that the panel here is raised to give you lots of space for maneuvering cables. Take it off again, just the 2 thumb screws, and slide. Inside here again we can see our hard drives, optical drive space. We have our cutouts here for cable routing. These are curled so that you won't have sharp edges to cut any cables. Lots of tie points for your cable management. Your solid state drive mount point again, and the big area for your CPU. Over here we have another set of power cables for the front fan. And here's the routing for our front I/O shield. Also, we have 3 tabs, 1, 2, and 3, which each have to be released in order to remove the front panel. There are 3 more of these tabs on the front side too. And now here we have our look at the Seidon 120. See, here's the CPU block connected to the radiator and the 120 millimeter fan. Our brackets, including some thermal paste, and the instructions for assembly. Here we have all the various parts for the Seidon 120. We have the water block here, the pipe, and the radiator, all as one unit, hence why it's called an all-in-one. Here's the back plate, which goes on the back of the motherboard. We have 4 screws which hold the fan to the radiator, and 4 screws which are used to go through this to hold the water block down to the motherboard and to the processor. We have 4 clips here. These 4 clips go into the back plate. I happen to be using Intel, so the way I'm going to do this is there's a little notch on the side of the screw that gets put in facing inwards towards the center, and then you just grab one of these clips and you slide it on over the screw. There are 3 notches along the edge here. For Intel wise, so you have the 775, the 1155, 1156, and then 1366, and then the 2011 size all the way out here. Okay. There's that piece assembling the fan. Just align the fan how you want. You have to figure out ahead of time which side of the radiator you want the fan on, but with the tools that you're given here, it's probably best to have it pushing through the radiator. And screw just through there on the fan, and into one of the holes on the radiator. Do that for all 4, and you're good to go for the radiator. For installing the CPU bracket, the only thing you need to do is make sure that these holes line up with these 2 screws on the CPU bracket. And just line the holes up, put them in, and push it. Screws are lined up. We're good to go around to the other side. When you go to the other side, I find it's best to lay it down. You want to put something there to keep this from falling out. This cardboard box, which the screws and stuff where the case came in, works nicely. For installing the radiator and the rest of the all-in-one unit, you can see that now the screws pass through and they're high enough that I can interact with them. So let's install the radiator. And it doesn't really matter how you line up the radiator. You can put it in this way or this way. It doesn't really matter. I will happen to set it in this direction. And set it up with one of the top 120 mounts. It comes with, I said, 4 screws. These are the littlest screws that come in the set, and they're to hold the radiator to the case. Once your radiator is installed, you're ready to connect up the CPU. Since this is the Intel, I'm using the square-styled bracket. Just line it up. With these pegs, they're little pins and holes. These all line up. Doesn't really matter which way. Try to not touch this surface. If you do, you need to clean it off. Otherwise, you won't have good heat transfer. And make sure you do your thermal paste. Get that wire out of the way. And I'll line these up. There we go. And now we'll secure these all nice and tight. Once all 4 of the screws are nice and secure, you can see the heatsink and the water pump unit are nice and secure. Just plug your CPU in here into your CPU fan. And your 4-pin over here for the radiator and the fan into another fan point. I happen to have one that's right here. And there you go. That's installed. Now it's time to test it and see how it does. Cooler Master 693 with a Seidon 120 will provide you a very solid foundation for your next computer build. Construction-wise, everything is very solid. Even if you take out both hard drive trays, you still have a nice solid case that's not going to be flexible or weak in any kind of way. And you have lots of places to mount solid-state drives. If you need to use a 3.5-inch drive in the top hard drive rack, you will have to limit yourself to a 10.5-inch video card. And even at that point, it's a very tight fit to get past the hard drive cages and lock the video card into place. But once that's done, there's lots of space to move around and to work with stuff. Even accessing the SATA ports underneath the video card, there's lots of room to reach around to the SATA ports from the underside, from behind the motherboard tray. Routing cables was also easy. There's lots of tie points, and you get included zip ties, so that was very good. Cooling wise, the 200mm fan on the front kept everything nice and cool. As you saw in the benchmarks, even that video card was idling under 40 degrees Celsius. That is not normal at all for that card. It's usually idles much warmer than that. The Seidon 120 on the CPU was also fairly easy to install. Once you understand the instructions, it's pretty simple installation, not too complex. And it did a great job of keeping the CPU cool itself. As you saw, it idled under 40 and it barely broke 70 for a max load. Altogether, it's a great case. Value-wise, with an MSRP of $119.99, it gives you some great value. I mean, the base case itself is about $90. Add on the Seidon 120, and you're already saving money versus buying them separately. But not only that, you get a great cooling solution and quality build, easy to assemble a case for $120. And because of this, I really had no issues at all with this case. The only thing that might call an issue was that the sliding thing on the top of the case, the little panel that covers the USB ports and the power switch, the only time it's really on a track is when it's closed all the way. That's the only time it's really stuck in a position. If you move it out to use the USB ports or turn it on, it's very easy to bump it and send that little cover flying. But it's a very minor part of the case, so I really don't see how that can be detracts from the overall quality of the case itself. Did a great job with cooling, and because of that, we're going to go ahead and give this our Editor's Choice Award. Once again, guys, I'm Phil with High Tech Legion. Be sure to check out our other videos on YouTube, subscribe to us, and follow us on Twitter. Look us up on Facebook. And be sure to say hello on our forums and on our website at www.hightechlegion.com. Have a great day.